everyone! Welcome to the channel dedicated to sharing the profound insights and wisdom of Andromedan contactee Alex Collier. If you're new here, you're in for a journey that expands your mind and consciousness, bringing you closer to understanding the messages from the fifth density Andromedan extraterrestrials. For those returning, we're grateful for your continued support. Before we dive into today's enlightening content, we have a small favor to ask. If you find value in the knowledge shared in this video, please consider hitting that like button, subscribing to our channel, and clicking the bell icon so you never miss an update. Your engagement helps us amplify Alex Collier's message, allowing us to reach a larger audience with these vital messages. We'd also love to hear from you, so please engage with the comments below. Whether it's a question, your thoughts, or even just an emoji for the sake of engagement, every comment counts. We read every single comment, and your feedback is incredibly valuable to us. Additionally, if you'd like to support us further, consider giving a super thanks tip by clicking the heart with the $sign. This small gesture allows us to continue bringing you more of Alex's messages, unfiltered and directly from his lifelong experiences with the Andromedans. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy today's video.
You know, one of the things that I enjoy the most is history. And I've gotten some emails suggesting some of that again. And, you know, I've thought about it, and I think it's a really good idea to do some more of that because there is so much going on, and there's going to be so much hidden knowledge and history that's going to be exposed. Let me adjust this. As well as other information about ourselves that I thought it would be a really good idea. Plus, it's something that I'm very passionate about. So we're going to do some of that today. But we're going to start off with some of the current stat stuff. As you are probably aware, on the global political scene, there is an awful lot going on, especially here in the United States, Russia, Europe, etc. And, you know, 90, 92, 93% of everything we hear on the news media is negative. And you know, that's all by design. It's meant to wear us down and to get us to fall into helplessness and hopelessness, and to focus our energy on the disempowering of humanity. Because, as you are fully aware, consciousness is rising. People are waking up. They are becoming aware. They're seeing things they never saw before. They are feeling very inspired to question authority, to do extra research, getting the populations getting their gander up about things that were unacceptable that governments continue to do. Now people are less tolerant and are simply fighting back or questioning authority. These are all good things in my opinion. There's also quite a bit of chatter in exopolitics circles. And there is quite a bit going on underground. And we're definitely going to be talking about that. I'm going to give you the hot spots where things are live and down and dirty and are going on between military benevolent ETs and the dark side. And the dark side, I'm referring to regressives. both humans and aliens. So let's start. JP and I did a show for an hour and a half last Sunday, and he, if you haven't heard it, I think it was okay. I never listened to these myself, but he brought up something about the global reset, and all I'm going to say at this particular point is that it could happen anytime, out of the blue, especially when you're sleeping. Don't lose faith. The system that we've been living under, the debt system that everybody's been living under for 300 years, is done. It's over. Everybody's had enough. Even sold out governments are over it. Bought and paid for politicians are over it. Everyone is sick and tired of being a slave. That's that rise in consciousness. You reach a threshold, and then that's it. You flip. Everything changes. Your perspective changes, and you go. It's like the pendulum. You swing one way so far until you've reached a point where you've absolutely had enough, that you're done. Then you make another decision, and then the pendulum begins to swing back. Well, that's what's happening. And it's happening all over the world. Minimum 210 countries, at least the ones that count. So you got to have faith, okay? As you can imagine, the resistance is profound. It is all-out war. And the problem with tyrants is that they can't stand freedom because they don't have control. So that's the battle. We want freedom, they want control. There is no middle ground there. There just isn't. And there won't be any middle ground. It's winner take all. And that gets to what is it that you want. Only you can decide that. There is some chatter about alien invasions. I'm not going to mention any names. Anything like that is completely staged by those who are already here underground. You understand? No one from the outside of the solar system is coming in here to do something like that. And I actually find it pretty shocking that people are actually talking about this nonsense, because that's what it is. It's nonsense. Unless it is an organized, planned, fake situation. That's it. And even that's not going to work. Okay? It may last a few minutes. It won't last a day, 24-hour cycle. It won't. So just those of you who have heard that chatter and have brought it to my attention, now you know how I feel about it. You don't have all of these star systems come in here and invest all the time and resources to just let someone come in and do what they want. It just isn't going to happen. It's just whatever. Okay. So moving on. I got an email from someone saying, are the A's going to allow the billionaires to go into their underground facilities, to their hideouts, their bug out spots, yada, 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 government officials, yada, 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 their underground bases? I have clarified this 7 years now. So I will do it one more time for those of you who don't have a background in the early stuff that was shared. The A's are from fifth density. They are here assisting those in fourth and us on third. They're not on point because they're fifth density. Who is on point, though, are benevolence from fourth. The A's themselves are not ever going to fix our government or governments. It is their opinion that we're the ones who put them in power. We're the ones year after year who allow them to stay. We're the ones who allow them to lie and get away with it. We're the ones who allow them to steal our natural resources and get away with it. Therefore, it's our problem, not theirs. Where they are intervening and continue to do so, as well as those on fourth, are non-Earth terrestrial life forms, extraterrestrials. Those who have come in here, whether they signed a treaty with our government or not, everybody knows it's not worth the paper or lambskin they signed it on, because these regressive groups never keep their word about anything except to each other. There is some honor amongst thieves, but that's pretty much where it ends. So I hope that answers your question. Once the ETs, the regressive ETs, are out of here and that particular threat is completely neutralized, we may or may not have issues with our governments. That's on us, as it should be. We have to have some skin in the game. We have to make some serious changes. We as a people, we as one planet made of many tribes, we have to decide what it is that we want. And that involves dialogue, and it involves a real fundamental decision, a basic decision, an instinctual decision to either be free and live free with self-responsibility, or live in a communistic, socialism, or fascist state where we are the property of the state and as such are a natural resource and are a slave. That's what it comes down to. It's not hard. It's not a difficult choice. It's not complicated. If you look at history, it's all laid out for you. All you got to do is genuinely look, do the research, and for those of you who think socialism is a good idea, it's never worked, ever. Because the minute they run out of somebody else's money, it collapses. Then you fall into communism, where once the state has control of everything, it then becomes fascism. That's it. That's the other side of the coin. Or freedom. You're responsible for yourself. You make it work. You make your own decisions. You blaze your own trail using hard work, ingenious, intelligence, imagination, and you blaze a trail for yourself and your family. Hard work, very hard work, but rewarding, because what you build is yours, and then you can pass it on to your families. That's freedom. Okay, there's more risk, but you are free. That's it. It's not rocket science. Okay? Now, those benevolents that are here working with special units, ODA units, from different militaries, are doing some mop-up They're doing some cleanup. And the hotspots underground right now are the Superstitious Mountains, just east of Apache Junction, near the Praying Hands Formation. Underground, there's a nest that's being cleaned out as we speak of reptilians. Maybe a few grays, but it's primarily the reptilians. Underneath the Praying Hands Formation, there are tunnels that lead south into Mexico. There are units working the Mexico side of those tunnels, working it in. And then there are those units that are working from the Arizona end. Anyway, they're cleaning it out. In Europe, the Jura Mountains on the Swiss-French border, a lot of reptilians there. That shouldn't surprise anybody. The hierarchy, the royal families of Europe are all connected to, many of them are connected to reptilian bloodlines. That area is very hot right now, very down and dirty. There are many subterranean rivers that move through Europe, and tracking devices are in there, and now they know where they're hiding. So now they're going in to flush them out. The Yucatan, the White Cave River system is an area also where you have not a very large nest, but some pretty nasties there. That's being dealt with very, very severely, that group down there. In the Kalahari Desert, there are huge caverns and cave systems that surround the world's largest underground lake there in Namibia. That's another hot spot, and they are working it as we speak. The Carpathian Mountains, there's no one in those cross cave systems just yet, but they are sealed off, and they're waiting for the resolution of some of these other units so that they can be flown, and or however they get there, transport, teleport to this particular area to work this area next. The cross cave systems in Slovenia. It's in the Carpathian Mountains. Now what's interesting is when that's all done, when they have rooted those units, those areas out, everyone then moves up to Canada. Yes, Canada. To the Mackenzie Mountains. Apparently there's a couple valleys there that you just don't go. No one goes. Because you check in, you never check out. No one checks out. And I'm told that that's the last stronghold of the reptilians. And we also have a couple royal sea cars up there. Again, they're all underground. The Nahini Valley is one of them. And I understand that the other valley right next to it doesn't actually have a name. It's just there. That's going to be the last, that's going to be, from what I understand, the last area they go into. And in some of these areas, the Jura Mountains, the Yucatan, I know for a fact those two, the benevolent ETs are in front. They're on point. They're being backed up by Earth ODA teams, forces. In the other places, they're side by side, but in these two particular areas, the Jura Mountains and the Yucatan. These are some very pretty nasties. The benevolents are on point because they've had this battle before. They know what to expect. They have the technology, and just wanted you to know there's a lot going on, as there is on the surface. You know, all of this drama, all of these distractions that keep us looking in one particular direction. But as usual, there's always a lot more going on. And then when those units are done, they go into the Mackenzie Mountains of Canada. And yeah, that's all I can say about that. Now, what's interesting about these tunneling systems, these ancient tunnel systems, they've been around for quite some time. In fact, many of them predate Atlantis. Now, talking about that, when Atlantis was at war with the Pleiadians, and things didn't look good, many people began to evacuate. They knew they were in harm's way, and they began to leave. Now, those who could not get out on ships, whether they were airships or they sailed the seas, their only recourse was to risk using the tunnel system. Now, many people, many tribes were able to succeed in that. That's where the Mayans ended up. When they surfaced, they formed the Mayan civilization. The Aztec tribe, in a similar fashion. Many of the tribes in Peru, in South America, that's how they got there. Some came by sea, but many were able to get to the mainlands through the underground subterranean tunnel systems. Now, they were large enough because of the ancient mining on the planet looking for gold. So the equipment that was used, they were excellent tunnels, and they're all virtually the same in their construction and how big they are, and the meters high, meters across, etc. So that's important to note. And that's worldwide, which shows a commonality in the way that they were built or formed. This explains why there are so many subterranean systems in Europe, all over Europe, and in Asia. Was for this reason. And these tunneling systems are very, very extensive. Not all of them are open on both ends. The Earth's crust has shifted, causing some of them to collapse. It is here in the United States, some of these systems, these subterranean tunnel systems, is where we built our underground magnetic tram systems to move people across the country. The tunnels were already there. It was very easy to lay the equipment. All you had to do was come up with an alternative power source, which of course those type of black projects already have. You know that. This is an educated group. You already know that, okay? Using fusion reactors and things of that nature. And we've talked about that ad nauseum in older webinars. Now, some of these subterranean tunnel systems connect to cities, ancient cities. When you hear the term deep underground military base, you will, many people automatically make an assumption that it's like, okay, well, they built these shopping malls or mall type of things underground with artificial light, etc., water purification systems next to aquifers or attached to aquifers. And they have this tram system that can move people underground, and it's anywhere from 1 to 10 miles underground, 5 miles underground. What you don't realize is that some of these dump systems around the world were already there. They were just not inhabited. And all that had to be done was to build modern housing, lay modern plumbing, and bring in modern and reverse engineered technology to make all this work. At some point, we're all going to be told this, and it's important that you know this. Now, the fascinating thing about ancient cultures is that in many respects they were far more advanced than we are today, especially about certain things, astronomy, the Earth, the circumference of the Earth, the landmass of the Earth. They had a remarkable ability to know where all minerals were. For example, in Sumeria, Chaldea, Babylon, Sumer, Assyria. In the Middle East, there was not a lot of bronze or tin. Those metals were just not in abundance. But they were in Peru. Okay? They were in Peru. Now, what's interesting is that there is evidence, archaeological evidence, which of course has been hidden and tucked away because it doesn't fill the narrative of what they want us to believe about the past. Those cultures went to Peru by ship to buy tin and bronze. Bronze was a really big deal. And those particular areas of Peru had an abundance of it, especially around the Lake Titicaca area. And they would park their ships right up into the port, and there were smelters there. They could smelt the metals they wanted, load them on the ships, and then sail back. Now, we know this because of archaeological discoveries of tablets, the names of certain areas in Peru, which are actually Sumerian names, okay, Chaldean names, as well as inscriptions and tablets and things that were left behind that would have absolutely no business being there. And the Epic of Gilgamesh actually is about a journey from the Middle East to Peru to pick up minerals and then bring them back. It's about the journey and how dangerous it was. So, of course, this is not what we're taught in history. You know, they don't want us to know any of this because the dumber we are, the more easily controlled we are. But it's important to know this information, especially as we get closer to, I don't want to say first contact because that's not true. That it isn't first contact. A reintroduction to our forefathers from the stars. And it's important to have some of this background information. To some of you, it may be absolutely useless information. But in reality, it isn't, because we're all searching for who we are. You know, exactly how did we get to this place? You know, what's the story? How is it that we're all so different and yet we're all very much the same? Why is it that so much of these ancient structures are such an enigma that, you know, we can't build them today? How is it that they were built 12, 23, 30,000 years ago? You know, when we're told that it was nothing here but Neanderthals and dinosaurs, which of course is an absolute crock of shit, for lack of a better word. So, that's important to know. I'm going to save Moses for last. Yeah, I'm going to get myself in trouble today. We're going to save him for last. Okay. Now, along those lines of what we were just talking about, ancient history, Cincinnati, Ohio. Anybody ever been there? It's a lovely place to drive through. The mound builders. So much of what's been found there that's been preserved is never, ever, ever talked about. And that's fascinating, because we know that many of the ancient peoples, the indigenous people, they had a real wisdom about the world, about the planet. And they knew that the Earth rotated around the sun. I guess the only group that never got that message was the Vatican, Catholic Church, because they persecuted everybody for thinking otherwise. But of course, they were wrong. And the mounds. Now, inside the mounds, here in North America, not only did they discover the bodies of giants, but they had artifacts with them. Their clothing that they wore didn't come from America. It came from the Middle East, Babylon, Sumeria, Mesopotamia, thousands and thousands of years ago. And they were obviously here for a reason. And we're gonna end with that. They were here for a reason. They were looking for something. So it wasn't just the Native Americans. There were many different people in North America. Now, these particular formations are all over Ohio for the most part. Some of the best ones that had the most startling archaeological significance to them were near Brighton Hill, okay? And along with the bodies, and many of these were excavated in the late 1800s, 1880s, 1890s, right up until 1921. And then all of a sudden, it just like, bam, the hammer came down. No one talked about it. No one wanted to talk about it. Well, what's fascinating about this is if you were to look up something called the Cincinnati tablet, it's a stone that has our modern measurement system on it. The stone that's written on came from Mesopotamia. And it's somewhere close to 3,000 years old. And here it was buried in Cincinnati in a mound with people who were dressed as royalty, also from the Mesopotamia, Sumeria, Babylonian area. So there's an excellent book called America BC, written by Barry Fell, where he talks about the Nordic signs, Egyptian signs, Welsh Gaelic signs that were found all up and down the East Coast. And of course, we're going back 1,000 years more, 2,000 years. But of course, they don't fit the narrative that Columbus discovered the New World in 1492. Much of our history actually is the result of other tribes, other cultures coming to the United States. They all knew about it. They knew it was here long before Columbus. And he knew it was here because he was given the ancient maps. So where am I going with all this? Well, we're not quite done yet. I'm going to give you one more, and then we're going to kind of tie this all together. Now I'm going to take you to Colorado and the Oklahoma border. There are some fascinating things in Colorado, as well as in Utah. And it appears that the movement of artifacts is from the east to the west. We still on? There we go. Movement is east to west. Now, there have been many people who have talked about some of these things. Brad Steiger was one of them, God rest his soul, and others who have talked about some of these things. One of the more fascinating things is a cave system called Crack Cave. It's on the Oklahoma-Colorado border. Now, it's 35 miles southwest of Springfield in an area called Picture Canyon. Now, the reason they call it Picture Canyon is because of all the petroglyphs. They're pretty much everywhere. Now, what's interesting is they're not all from the same tribe. All of them are of different ages, and obviously by different cultures. And they span like 900 to 1,100 years of history of people passing through this area to go somewhere. Now, the fascinating thing about Picture Canyon, or Crack Cave, is that on the fall solstice, the archaeologists were there just by happenchance to be there working on this particular thing, on this particular find in this cave. And they saw all these things on the walls and on the floor of this particular cave, but they really couldn't make heads or tails of it. So they were documenting it. They were there on the solstice, and they were having their coffee, and the light, as it rose, shone into the cave. Now, what's interesting about that is what wasn't there before, or they couldn't see before, suddenly appears right in front of them. And what showed up in front of them were carvings and glyphs that they could not make out except on this particular solstice. These ancient astronomical alignments, which have since been studied by NASA, were ancient Gaelic encryptions. Okay, they were Gaelic encryptions, and they were tracking whoever these people were. They were tracking the constellation of Gemini to a very specific point. And that particular point, when the light shone into the cave, the words in ancient Gaelic said that we are children of the sun, that we come from the noble twins, and it gave a date, August the 8th, 471. Okay, in the ancient Gaelic, it translated into the year 471. So we have, here in Colorado, Gaelic inscriptions from many different cultures. This particular picture canyon, what's interesting is that the Indians called it Anubis, the Anubis Caves. That was the name that the Native Americans had for it. Now, Anubis is Egyptian, okay? So how would they know about that word? It's interesting. It's nothing short of interesting. They in researching the rest of the area, there are just so many different civilizations that have come through this area. So you have to ask yourself, well, where was everybody going? What is so fascinating about America, or the ancient land of the West, that everybody wanted to know about? All these ancient cultures. And why is it that we know nothing about it? I can tell you unequivocally where they were going, what it is that they wanted to see, because to the rest of the world, this particular area was absolutely sacred. And it was a place where the gods, okay, the flying starships, those who died here were laid to rest. And what we're talking about, where these people were going, was to the Grand Canyon in Arizona, the land of the lion. Arizona, the land of the lion. In Los Lunas, New Mexico, there are ruins of a temple that have an ancient Hebraic language of the Ten Commandments on it that has been an extinct language for almost 2,500 years. That's in New Mexico. Again, moving east to west. There are areas of the Grand Canyon where you simply cannot go. They don't let anybody in there. What's interesting about this particular area is that there are many monuments or ruins of monuments that all have ancient Egyptian names to them. They may have had Sumerian names, who knows? But the Book of the Dead talks about the burying of their kings and their queens and their gods in the ancient land of the West. The Sumerians, the Babylonians, the Mesopotamians, the Chaldeans talk about the ancient land of the West, the land west of the sea. And again, Gilgamesh, the epic story of Gilgamesh. So there's a lot going on. There has been a lot going on. And it's interesting how all of this information lines up. Now, there are ruins all over the planet, remarkable ruins. China's got more pyramids than anybody. And they have the biggest pyramid in the world in China. It's just, they don't let the West in to see it. But it's there. It's absolutely there. And these pyramids were built by many different ancient cultures. Many of them were specific weights to stabilize the surface, the ground, tectonic plates, to keep them from wobbling and shaking as weights. But they also did other things because these were very technically advanced civilizations. Now, what's interesting is they are perfectly astronomically aligned to different star systems. Perfectly. Which means that they had a true measurement of the planet and the continents. Now, for these ancient cultures to have that ability, they had to have been given it by someone who could fly, who knew the perfect circumference of the earth, and who could share that information with those cultures on the ground. For example, the Pyramid of Giza. It is built dead center, exactly dead center of the entire landmass of planet Earth as it is today. The odds of that are beyond ridiculous, that it would be that perfect and be perfectly aligned to Orion. The same thing with the Pyramid of the Sun. It's aligned to Cygnus Alpha in Bosnia. Don't know much about what's going on in China. So you see, there's a lot going on, and it's fascinating because it's our history. These are our forefathers, our ancestors, who had this knowledge and who left things behind for us to try to remember or figure out or pass on knowledge that we could use in the times that are coming. Because there is a lot of change going on. Whenever there's shifts in consciousness and they're allowed to move forward, if that consciousness is continued to expand, to be risen and raised amongst the populace, great shifts occur. Incredible introspection and perspectives are formed that all of humanity participates in and becomes a part of. We automatically become invested with it because it is us. And as we continue to ask the questions and focus on what we want, those things will continue to manifest. All this press, all this negativity, all this crap that we see on the news and the media, it's all there to distract us so we can keep focusing on what we don't want. If you focus on what you don't want, you're going to get more of what you don't want. You have to focus on what you do want. That's why I've said in the past, don't become emotionally invested in all this chaos. It's all organized, okay? This is organized chaos to move us from this evolution of consciousness to keep us back into sabotage. I mean, just look at what quantum physics is proving about the human soul, the spirit. Absolutely remarkable. How can you not want to be vested in that? How can you not want to know what that's all about? All it does is empower us, every single one of us. It individually empowers us as to who we really are. It connects our spiritual knowing, the things we always knew, and makes it hard scientific fact. So then you can let go of all the dogma, because now you know that it's bullshit. And it's been nothing but bullshit to keep a small group of people in power over all of us by feeding us the dogma, the lie. So great things are happening. Miraculous things are happening. Just keep focusing on what it is that you want. If you stay that path, if you steer that course, the information will come to you because it's your divine right. Self-knowledge is always available. And as Visayas once said, all the broken pieces always find their way home. Well, I'm not saying we're broken, but those are pieces we don't have, and they are finding their way home, which is to us. Be open to it. Allow yourself to be vulnerable and intuitive. If you have to be skeptical, but do the research. Do the research. Listen to the experts who are actually doing the work. Because, the talk of quantum physics, and this is so completely out of the box. All right, this is blowing religions out of the water. And they needed to be gone 400 or 500 years ago, because they have not served humanity at all. It's been a scam. And most of you know that because you're a very evolved group. Okay? The history is there. The knowledge is there. The will is there, which is why it's all coming back up and coming out again. Okay? We're supposed to know this information. And I think the reason we're supposed to know is that we need to have more history about who we are in our past, so that when we have a reintroduction with the Space Brothers, we're not all, ooh, ah, let's worship them again. Okay, we don't want to do that again. They may be technologically more advanced. They may have more wisdom because they've lived longer in a single life than we do. But they're not us, and we're not them. We can only be ourselves because everybody else is taken. Okay? We have to be ourselves. So let's be ourselves, and let's stand together as one, many tribes, one race, and let's stand together and let's figure this out. This is a remarkable time. This is an absolutely remarkable time to be alive. And be curious. Be curious. Be intuitive. Um, trust your heart more. Okay, trust your heart more. Now's the time. The frequencies are changing so radically. Now's the time to trust your heart, to trust your intuition. You know, get the kids out in nature. Get them hiking. Get them away from the damn phones and the video games. Okay, allow them to expand their energy field and to allow nature to embrace their energy field, the earth. It's important. It's really, really important. They're the future. Okay, we have to give them the tools. As we acquire the tools, we have to pass those tools on. And if you're a parent, you know that sometimes you keep saying something over and over and over again, and you have no idea if it's ever sinking in there. All right? Well, have them do this. Put one finger in one ear. Tell them again. At least this way you know it's bouncing around. Okay? It's in there somewhere. I get it. I so get it. So, I wanted to, before we go to questions, I wanted to read a quote from Socrates. And he said, to find yourself, you must think for yourself. You would think that that would be a no-brainer, right? And this last one is by Eileen Caddy. Cease trying to work out everything with your minds. It will get you nowhere. Live by intuition and inspiration, and let your whole life be a revelation. I liked that. I just discovered that a couple days ago. That's been sitting with me. So I would love to do some Q&A. I'm hoping we're still on. Yay, there's JP.
All good? So, very interesting stuff. I'm particularly interested in the
We're going to
ancients.
do Moses next week. All right?
Fabulous.
I want to add some things to that. We know when I say Moses, who I'm really talking about is Moab Sorsastris. That's who I'm really talking about. A Chaldean prince. So, go ahead.
Okay. Chaldean prince.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's have a look at the questions now. We have. All right. So here's an interesting question to start with from Ricardo Lenoir. Hi, Alex. Can artificial intelligence ever be a good thing? And if so, how can humanity ensure that we produce it responsibly? We've had plenty of sci-fi movies to show how it can go wrong, eh?
Hey, Ricardo, I think that's a great question. From what I have seen so far regarding artificial intelligence, its applications in medical procedures and medical treatments appears to be very, very, very promising. It can analyze so much data, so many things at once, and look at so many different things with the body on so many different levels that it's coming up with very specific ways to treat illnesses. Now, that type of knowledge and technology is used in the camera that the A's have that heals their bodies and also gives them past life information. So, to my knowledge, that's the only application they specifically use it with. Now, as far as it being used for the dark, you know, virtually all technology is a double-edged sword. It's important, though, that whatever technology we create, that we're really clear about what our intentions are in building it. Many, many years back in the early 90s, the A's talked about how we build weapons of mass destruction, believing that they're going to keep us safe, when in fact, all they do is create more fear and drain our reality of natural resources and the original intent. Because now that we create these weapons of mass destruction, now we have to protect them so that nobody else can get them. And if we use them, well, basically any area is dead from 2 to 10,000 years. They leak. They're harmful to us, or those who work on them. The process of creating uranium, the waste that's created from the uranium, it has to be buried somewhere forever, because it contaminates forever. So it's interesting, and this is where I know that the shifts in consciousness, they will take us to other places and in ways of where we can look at what we've already done and look at it with not only a fresh eyes, but a completely different perspective. Because we built it, or we created these technologies in a place of this fear, and now we're way over here, and we're hopeful, and we're promising, and we're open, and we're intuitive, and we're living life and compassionate. Do we need this anymore? Does it even fulfill a purpose? And hopefully the answer is no, we no longer need it. We've evolved beyond it. So then we have to look at, okay, how do we uncreate it? And I believe that we're getting close to that, because the benevolence, they have the technology where they can take this uranium, these horribly radioactive things, and speed up their life cycle to where they become just dust. All right? And they use technology to do it. So if a pound of uranium has a life cycle of, 4,000 years, 10,000 years, whatever it is, using their technology, maybe in less than a year, using the technology, they can age that uranium to 10,100 years. Now it's useless. It's of absolutely no consequence or harm to anybody. And it's safe to dispose. So we don't need to rebuild or even go back to that kind of a technology. That's a really good question. And the fact that, there are some governments that are thinking or toying with the idea of putting those kind of weapons in the hands of AI systems, that is a scary thought for me. A very, very scary thought. Because what is the emotional state? What is the spiritual state of people who build this kind of technology? Spiritual people don't build this shit. Okay, they don't. They don't build this kind of stuff. They wouldn't do it. So, but spiritual people will figure out how to undo it. Okay, JP.
Okay, all right, here we go.
Yay. Okay.
Yep. All right, from Jacqueline G. Hi, Alex. In reference to the Ever Beyond broadcasts last weekend, what can we do that we aren't doing or aren't doing enough of to weaken the cabal or their off-planet dictators? What is their kryptonite? Thank you, as always.
Well, thank you. That's a great question. The cabal is going down anyway. They've had their run, and they're done. Okay, they had their run, and now they're done. Now, what that really means when the whole thing goes down is that there's going to be a period I don't know how long. If I had to guess, I would say maybe 10 or 12 years. It could be shorter, where the way everything works now, it will not work that way. And there will be adjustments as to how everything works. Now, I don't necessarily think that, I think food, medical, those type of things will be there. Well, there will be huge changes on the medicals. But let's just say the food. More of us will be growing our own food. Communities will be growing their own food. Golf courses in many, many cities all over the world will be turned into community farms. And it's a perfect place to do it. Okay? You've got great soil. They'll probably need to be refertilized. You have the water systems already there to water the crops. And it's just a perfect place to do it. And they're usually in areas surrounded by communities. So golf courses will become community farms. Water systems. There will be purification systems coming out. Desalinization plants will be built everywhere on the planet as soon as the plates stop moving and shifting. And there's going to be some change. I don't exactly know when it's going to start. In fact, I really thought it would have been done and over with by now. But we've been given more time to get our acts together. Those kind of things, there's going to be a transition. Do the best you can intuitively to prepare for that. Make sure your pantry's filled with extra stuff. But more importantly, it's you. It's you. Find your center. Find that place in you that is so calm that you experience no fear. Because when you're calm, that frequency emanates to everyone around you. And wherever you have to go to find that, or whatever process you use, whether it's good music, playing music, meditating, going in nature, going on a hike, eating a great Italian meal, listening to Sinatra, whatever that takes, that's what you do. Okay? And you guard that place. You be that place. You walk in that place of absolute confidence and calmness. That's the biggest thing. Because when you're there, you're all powerful. You can physically manifest what you want. You can draw it to you. You will draw it to you. And you will draw other like-minded people to you. And the more of you there are focused on the same thing, the quicker and faster it happens. And it's incredibly empowering. And that's what we want to do. We want to empower each other through this period of transition and set the example for these younger generations who haven't got a clue. They just haven't, most of them don't have a clue. So, because they're too busy with their phones, you know, they don't look up. So that's what I would do. Thank you. Good question.
Frank Sinatra and Italian food sounds good to me.
I'm hungry.
yeah, it makes you peckish, doesn't it? So, our friend Lauren, always great questions.
Yes.
You have talked about spending 91 days with the A's, and when they brought you back, it was like you were only gone 18 minutes.
Yes.
And during that time, you lost nearly 30 pounds.
Yes.
Did your girlfriend, parents, or boss say, "Oh my God, you look like you've lost 30 pounds since this afternoon"?
I was single, and I had my own tax practice at the time. People did notice, and I just said that I'd been on a diet. What else was I going to tell them? So people did notice, and again, in my storage in California, I have pictures of me at that time, before and after. So I'm hoping not to lose my storage. But anyway.
Do you want to say a little bit about the storage thing?
I have to get it, and it's a lot of money. See, I moved out there to be closer to my kids after the divorce. And got settled, worked the job, and then 2009 came with the real estate and Wall Street. And everything changed. It changed for a lot of people. And the company that I was working for lost its funding, its C round of funding. So they let everybody go but the two principals. And the house that we were renting went into foreclosure, but they never told us that. And I walked out one day to put the trash on the street. This is in Riverside. And there were people taking pictures of the house. And I'm like, "What are you doing?" And they said, "Well, the house goes to auction in 11 days. I go, "What are you talking about?" The house had been foreclosed, and they were still taking the money, the rent money. And they never told us. And I guess in California, they're allowed to do that because we had absolutely no recourse. So we had 9 days to pack up the house, put everything in a 10 by 30 storage, and then we bounced from Tucson, Arizona to southern Colorado to Colorado, and everything just kind of fell apart. And then I got sick. It was a very tough road. So there was never an expectation that all that stuff would be there this long. And I have done everything possible to make sure that I've paid that all these years, because there's things in there I can never, ever, ever replace. So that's the story. I think I've shared this before. That's the story. That's what it's all about. And it's, there are times in life you look back and you're like, "What the hell is this all about?" What's this all about? And that's one of them. That's one of them. If it weren't for the things that I couldn't replace, I would have let it go. But just the thought of someone else having those things, those items, I can't go there. I just can't go there. So, that's what it is. And keep looking for that miracle. Keep looking for that miracle. That reset. I'm looking for that reset.
Well, you said earlier, the broken pieces find their way home.
Heard that.
Yeah. So let's hope that's going to happen soon. And yeah, miracles happen, don't they? Miracles happen all the time.
Yes, they do. Yes,
angels exist.
I'm a firm believer in miracles and angels.
So let's make that happen. Another question from Michael Kelly.
Yay!
Yeah.
One of my favorite people on the planet.
Excellent. There's nobody in this group here who is near enough that storage container to kind of go and get.
I don't know everybody on this.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Where's this approximate location?
Riverside, California.
Riverside. So, is there anybody here in the chat room who's near Riverside, California? Let me just see. I'm just putting that out there.
Well, what's Kelly's question? What's Mike's question?
Oh, he's got two. So let's start with this one. With respect to the fifth dimensional A's supporting the fourth dimensional benevolence to free Earth, what's the most important spiritual or technological aspects of their assistance in this movement?
Projecting integrity. Projecting integrity on the entire process of introduction, explanation of intentions, assistance in setting up workable programs of mentorship, following through with the mentorship, introduction of technologies and their appropriate and proper use for the benefit only of humanity, and then leaving when we feel that we're ready to completely stand on our own, to stand back, to stand off, to back off, and allow us to stand on our own and begin to move forward, to stay in integrity through that entire process, and to force us to remain in integrity as well. You know, that's the thing about the benevolence. They call you on your shit. Not everybody likes that. Not everybody likes that. But that's what they do. That's what they do. They do. So, otherwise they bail. You know, they bail. And that's not something we want now. We've had enough of all the other stuff. You know, we've done that. We've done all that. Thousands and thousands of years. Okay? Civilizations have come and gone, been destroyed several different times, and pockets of survivors rebuild. Let's get it right this time. We will have the tools, we have the mentoring, we have all the right pieces in place to actually make this work. All we have to do as a civilization is show up. Show up, keep our word, keep our commitments, and make it happen. And as we do that, as we build in self-empowerment, self-reliance, in integrity, it filters down to all future coming generations. You know, that's our job. That's our job. That's what we're here to do, is to write this course for humanity. Okay, that's what we need to do. That's what we're here for. Good question, Mike. I think there was another one too, right?
Yeah, he had a second follow-up. Hey again, what is Morinet's opinion on the reptilians' prospects for redemption, since they have not been in control of what they are doing and will be freed eventually as well?
There is a percentage that has the possibility or the ability of right action, but overall, that particular line of species is done. It's going to self-implode and at some point will become extinct. And what I mean by that is that the souls that inhabit those bodies will choose different life forms in future lives, and that particular life form will become extinct. That's you know, no one's ever asked me that, and I've known that for years. I love this group. God, I just love this group.
Some great questions. So, if somebody wants to help you out with the container, could you give us your an email that you can that you're available on?
Yes, you know, let me give you another email, and because, my Ivanhoe 1818 is just bombarded with stuff, and I get spammed like there's no tomorrow. But I'm going to give you a new one, and this is the first time I'm ever putting this out there. Galahad, Galahad, 1818 at outlook.com. And yeah, I'm into knights. I'm into chivalry. I'm unabashedly a strong proponent of being valiant and chivalrous and doing what's necessary. So Galahad 1818 at outlook.com.
Okay.
And
So if anybody wants,
I don't want James putting that on the site either. Okay.
No. We just keep this to this group.
There you go. Okay.
And I'll try
there's
to.
No spam on that one. I mean, nobody.
No.
I don't get any email there yet. So it'll just be, it'll be good stuff.
Fabulous. So let's go on to the difficult question, the A word. Jacqueline G, in reference to the abortion discussion, what is the 5D Andromedan experience with things like birth control, family planning and adoption, length of gestation, etc.? You mentioned that surrogate pregnancy after a pregnancy has been carried partway by an individual. Can you tell us or find out more about their own experience, prenatal family experience? Many thanks again.
I have shared with you the story of when I was with them for the 91 days, and I made the huge tactical mistake of imagining this beautiful woman and undressing her in my mind and forgetting that she was telepathic. I have shared that story with you. There is a lot more to that story. And that brought about a series of conversations with me about sex and procreation. The A's, the only time they are involved in physical intercourse is with the intention of creating a life. It is not something that they do strictly for pleasure at all. They have other things and other ways of experiencing pleasure that are not involved with sex. Now, I don't know if other races experience that or not. I simply don't know, because I'm not a multiple contactee with many different races, so I don't know what they all do. But that's their reality. That is their perspective. When they have intercourse, it's with the intention of creating a life. Other than that, they don't experience the act, the physical intercourse. That's all I can tell you. They don't judge. They haven't in any way judged anybody else or any other process that's done, other than bring up the issue that a particular race, well, I've already shared that, the abortion, their perspective on abortion. They never, all they did was state what I've shared with you as a fact. And I mean, just last year, there were over 50 million abortions. 50 million. I don't know what there were the year before that. I don't know what it's going to be next year. But let's just say it's consistent at that number for 5 years. That's 250 million people. Now, it's interesting that we hear that in Western society, the populations of countries is going down. And that's why they want to bring in immigrants to replace the births that we're no longer having. Is there a connection to that? That instead of children, we're not having children, we're doing this, and therefore they're bringing in people to basically fill the gap and to essentially dissolve our cultures with these other people who are not adapting or choosing to become part of that particular culture. It's an interesting question. But the violence has gone way up, especially in cities all over the planet. There's a lot of violence. I mean, the reasons that people kill are just, it's amazing. I mean, you know, people are dying for $1 in their pocket. It's not a conversation I am at all very comfortable having because it's so emotionally charged. And I don't know the right answer. I have my own opinions, but they're going to remain my own opinions. Really what matters is what you think. I just brought it up to the table for you guys to think about. Okay, let's move on. Please.
Okay, yeah. Alaria is
one more
asking,
question.
do the A's have any suggestions on how to manage new physical ailments occurring because of chemtrails, like, for example, chemtrail lung and feeling snivelly after one's gone over?
You know, that's a conversation that has come up, and my understanding is, and this was in the 90s, and this was Faceus's perception, is that 90% of all the ailments that we all suffer from begin with inflammation in the body. So all of it, whether it's chemical or not, begins with inflammation in the body. So maybe that's something we need to look at. How do we eliminate and treat inflammation in the body first? If we can get rid of that, if we can totally eliminate or control the inflammation from running amok, it probably will not lead to other more severe ailments that we have in our bodies. So, you know, take that for what it's worth. I'm looking for the machine. I want to get my hands on one. I want to get one of their cameras. You know, I want to build one. I don't have the software piece, but it would sure be nice. It would be great to have everyone feel good about themselves and feel good about their physical bodies. It would be great for everybody.
Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you found it insightful, please like the video, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel and click the bell icon so you don't miss out on future updates. If you have any questions relating to today's video, please also leave them below. We read all the comments and take on board what our viewers have to say about Alex Collier's work. Remember, your support helps Alex Collier's knowledge and the messages from the Andromedans reach more people. If you'd like to support the channel even more, you can give us a super thanks tip by clicking the heart icon with a $sign. It really helps our team bring you more content. Also, be sure to visit alexcollier.org to sign up for our regular email newsletter. It's the best way to stay updated with the latest news, exclusive content, and upcoming live webinars. For the latest insights from Alex Collier, check out alexcollier.live. And if you want to explore over 250 past webinars, head over to alexcollier.tv. Thank you for being a part of this journey and supporting Alex Collier's work. We couldn't do this without you, and we're genuinely grateful for your support. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the vast mysteries of our universe. If you would like to see the Andromedan contactee Alex Collier live via video stream, we hold a live online seminar every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. For more information on upcoming live webinars, please visit alexcollier.org.